You think that self-deprecation is modesty. It's not. It's self-obsession. And there's no room for anything else. You think Mother Teresa walked around complaining that the tops of her thighs touched? She wasn't like, okay, this is fine, okay? But it's like, then I clench and it's all oatmeal. No, she was busy. I'm in awe of my sister. She's my hero. She's like this liberal, hippie, feminist rabbi that lives in Israel, and she's got 5 kids.
Sarah, first of all, in case you haven't noticed, is brilliant. Like in her sort of unassuming, cute, whatever way.
And these are the beautiful sisters you just saw in that video.
Women in the World, sponsored by Coke Zero, bringing the message of Coke. That's why we're here today. In the Coke Theater by the Koch brothers, who support the arts among other less savory things.
I'm Nora O'Donnell. I'm thrilled to just sit here. Oh. Rabbi Susan Silverman, of course, and her little sister, the Sarah Silverman. And I have to say, it's great to be with both of you. We've had a wonderful time backstage because I, too, have a sister. And there's nothing more powerful than sisterhood, right? That's why we're all here.
Sisters are, there's 4 of us, and, you know, only sisters can you, like, you know, pull down your pants and be like, is this something? Will you look at this? Do I need to go to the doctor for this? Close.
I was thinking about my own sister because I'm a journalist and my sister is a surgeon. We chose different paths. But a rabbi and a comedian?
Walk into a bar?
Don't laugh at anything you say.
No, that's why I like you.
How did, and Susan, we'll start with you, how did you find out that you wanted to be, and what did your family think when you said, I'm going to go to rabbinical school?
Jesus came to you, right? In a dream? That's how it works.
And said, tell them I was a rabbi. You know, I always wanted to be a social worker. And I was a teenager working with at-risk, I was a teacher working with at-risk teens in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I was really frustrated by the limited resources that families got to sort of help themselves get strong. And my mentor in college was Howard Zinn, if anybody's. And he taught me about the Berrigan brothers, and I was like, the Berrigan brothers stopped a war. You know, clergy is really powerful. I knew nothing about Judaism. And so I decided to be a rabbi, and I called the rabbinical school on a Friday, and if those of you know, Friday afternoon, and asked for the admissions director, and the person answered the phone, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, said, he's gone. And I said, oh, I'll call back tomorrow. And she said in this like booming, godlike voice, tomorrow is the Sabbath. And I was like, oh, damn, did I leave my name? I didn't say damn, though.
And you grew up in New Hampshire, pretty secular family. What did your father say? Who's here tonight, or this afternoon, by the way? What did your father say when you said, I want to be a rabbi?
So some friends of mine said to him, wow, Mr. Silverman, mazel tov on Susan being accepted to rabbinical school. And he said, a rabbi? I didn't even know she was Jewish. I said, when I found out she was Jewish, I sat Shiva.
And Sarah, you did your first stand-up at 17?
Yeah.
Where were you?
I was, oh, right. They said put it right up here. I'm like, oh, it's been a long day of people talking into this. I'm like hoping I got Hillary's mic. Take it in. Share those molecules. Oh, let's see. I was 17. It was between junior and senior year of college, and I was at BU summer school, and I did open mic at a club called Stitches. It was on Com Ave at the time, Commonwealth Avenue. And yeah, that's the first time I did it.
I want to ask you about how you found your voice, because each of you have a very powerful voice. How did you find that voice?
Well, I mean, it could go back to our parents, of course, and
Our father talks a lot.
yeah. You can't really understand him because his Boston accent is ridiculous. I mean, I've known him for 43 years, and I'm still like, what? But they both are very vocal, very active, very involved. You know, my mom wore a lot of political buttons. You know, a lot of, you know, maybe the military should have a bake sale and schools should get funded by the, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, even I, as a kid, had a bumper sticker that said, like, Reagan knew. And, you know, I didn't know what he knew. And then now I don't think he did know. I think he was sick. So, hindsight's 20/20, if you can remember it. I don't remember the question, Nora. I am sorry.
She asked how we found our voice.
Oh.
But no, this question, you're both unafraid. And that's what a lot about this conference is about. You both seem unafraid.
Or we just don't know better. Maybe. But, you know, when you keep your overhead low, risk is minimal. What do you know, you don't, there isn't, you can do what you believe in and live the life you believe in. And if you don't care about, you know, stuff. And I hope I quote this right, but I always think of Charlie Kaufman, who said, you know, failure is a badge of honor. You know, failing means you know, risked failure. Did I see that right?
Yeah. Your dad, we mentioned, he's here this afternoon. Was there anything specifically he taught you growing up that your parents taught you?
Couldn't understand him.
I don't know what he was ever saying.
I don't mean either.
I read that he taught you how to cuss.
Well, yes. My first words were swears because my dad felt that a 3-year-old swearing is hilarious, and it turns out he was right. But you know what it gave me is I remember that feeling of grown-ups, despite themselves wildly approving of this bad behavior, and it made me made my arms itch with joy. I don't know how else to explain it, and I think I continued to kind of chase that shock value, you know, and hopefully at some point it became a little bit substantive. Mm-hmm. That's a word. You don't know it, so.
You are both, and I said this, unafraid. And Susan, talk about, you were arrested with your daughter in Jerusalem.
Yeah, so, you know, it's funny because I sit here at the end of a day where these women from Syria and the women from Peru and from Russia who are out risking their lives for what they believe in. And I've never been called upon to risk my life for what I believe in. I've only sort of spoken when I've seen a problem. And really, at least like the secret that I've discovered to activism is simply that you kind of say or do or, you know, resist whatever you need to say or do or resist. And that the activism follows, right? The interviews follow, the questions follow, the interest follows, the involvement of other people follows. And that it's actually not magic. It's just kind of being there.
And why did you bring your daughter?
She brought me.
Ah.
She brought me. I was there 25 years ago when it started, but just was never really involved again until she said, Mom, I'm going to go tomorrow to the wall, and if I get arrested, I get arrested. And I was like, I was supposed to go home for my stepmother Janice's birthday that night, and to fly back, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get arrested. Please don't keep me in jail. I need to get home for her 70th. But I thought I better go with her, because if she gets arrested, I want to be with her.
And you always want to be with your daughter for her first arrest.
Do you know Hallel? You're assuming that was her first arrest?
Political arrest.
And you helped with a nice little tweet when you heard that your sister had been arrested. Do you remember what you said?
Maybe I called them like kick-assy or something.
I think you said, you want to read that? It's right there.
So proud of my amazing sister and niece for their balls out civil disobedience. You're the tits. Yeah.
It's
With a Z.
But what
Tits.
did you think when you heard?
I was so proud, you know. I mean, I think, you know, I think they're changing the world, and I think that it's important. And, you know, I went to Jerusalem to visit them for the first time a few summers ago, and, you know, it was amazing. But everyone says you're going to feel so moved and you're going to feel connected. And when we went to the wall, I just felt sad. I mean, it was like this much space for the women and this much space for the men, and it was just glaring me in the face. And then everyone's saying, make sure this is covered and this is covered, and men throwing rocks at girls, and it just bummed me out. So you're supposed to write like a wish or something and put it in the wall, and I just put, no offense, no more religion. And I rolled it up and put it. Did I tell you that? Yeah. Except for Susie.
I love Susie. Now can I call you Susie too?
Please do.
Sorry, I can't.
That your daughter brought you to the wall. And I think one of the things we think about at this conference is, how do we teach our girls how to rule the world? What do you teach? You have 3 girls and 2 boys. What are you trying to teach them?
You know, when my big girls were little, Sarah bought them Free to Be You and Me.
It's a great story.
Boy,
It's a great story.
I love Free to Be You. In fact, we were just listening to it in our hotel room last night. True story. Love it. But I said to her, actually, I don't really want them to have Free to Be You and Me.
And I was like, what?
She's like, there's no reason in the world you could give me that I would accept for them not to hear Free to Be You and Me. And I said, well, it would be introducing the idea that some people think girls can't do what boys do.
Like, it would never occur to her kids that they couldn't do anything they wanted in life. And I went, oh, right.
I think it's just when you live a certain reality as best you can. And that, unfortunately, the world provides the teaching moments, right? So when my younger kids have come with us to the Western Wall and they see this, they're, what? There are like people who think that women aren't equal to men before God. You know, and that's unfortunately, the teaching moments provide themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like you were saying Adar with gay rights.
Yeah.
Because her kids, like, you know, she raised them to be like, you know, someday you'll meet a boy or a girl that you fall in love with, and it's never been like a specific sex, you know, just like you'll meet someone and you'll fall in love. And
Right, so when Adar was like, our son was like 12, we were talking about equal marriage stuff in the States, and he said, wait, he said, there are places in the world where 2 men or 2 women can't get married?
Sarah, you have also used your voice for political activism. You hosted a telethon, right, to raise money in terms of restrictive abortion services in Texas.
Yeah.
How did you get involved?
You know, Liz Winstead, who's a good friend of mine, started Lady Parts Justice website, and she's been touring with Planned Parenthood and NARAL, raising money for women's affordable health care that's just being shut down right and left, and abortion rights. I think we all kind of feel like afraid to say the
A word. A is for also I've been very involved with. And so in Texas, there are very few clinics left, and we just wanted to raise money to literally get women rides to affordable health care, to get abortions, to get stuff. And we did a live streaming fundraiser in New York at the Bowery Electric, and then we did one in Los Angeles with A is For. And it's funny because there were Westboro Baptist Church-ish people out front. And I said, I want to go say hi to them, and not antagonize them, not try to poke at them, but to just be a warm face. There was a little girl in a pink, cardigan with a sign that said, God hates you, you're going to hell. And I said, I just came out, and I didn't want to put them on the defensive. I think, that's one thing that Susie and I have in common with what we do is, ideally, it's an inclusive endeavor to, comedy or being in the clergy. Clergy is Jewish too, right? I'm not bright. There are a lot of things I don't know. So it's inclusive, and laughter also. So I talked to the little girl, and I talked to them, and I said, isn't it great we live in a country where we can feel strongly about something and do something about it, like me with this show tonight, or you standing here at this show, and that's what we have in common, is that we care. And isn't it great? We live in, whatever, trying to find common ground and show them a face. This little girl was raised by people who love her very much and say, there are people who want to murder babies. And if I were that little girl, I'd be like, we have to stop them, So she's an earnest human little thing, and I just wanted her to be able to associate this other side with another face, like my therapist says, darkness can't live where there's light. So if she just sees, okay.
I asked them this earlier, and I have to share this. I said, who in your family is really funny? And you can tell they're very funny, but your parents are very funny too, apparently, right?
Yeah.
Who's the funniest in your family?
Intentionally or unintentionally?
Both answers would probably be Dad.
And why is your father so funny? Where did that come from?
Pain, probably, and a tortured, scary childhood. Yeah. Those are the survival skill stuff is where we, all of us, get many of our gifts that we, are blessed with, or that's the silver lining of bummer stuff, or that we try to unlearn but keep the humor we got from it.
Sarah, I want to ask you too, because one of the interesting things, when you said you first did stand-up comedy at age 17. I know, 17. If anybody's tried stand-up comedy, it's really hard. Right?
Have you tried stand-up comedy?
I haven't, but I've been asked to do it. And I know how hard it is watching people who've tried it. It takes so much courage. It takes so much confidence. And you talk to mothers, I talk to moms all the time, who say, these 17-year-old girls in high school, they're so smart, they're so bright, they work harder than anybody, and they lack confidence. How do you have confidence to stand on a stage and tell jokes?
I think initially it's not knowing better. And I think a lot of greatness comes from not knowing of limits. I'm not saying I'm great, but I am. But, I had an old boyfriend that I pointed this out to me, and it echoes all the time in everything, which is the 4-minute mile. Nobody could break it because nobody had ever broken it. It took that one person that didn't know he couldn't break it, and then he broke it, and then everyone could, because they needed to know it was possible. But it takes that one person who just doesn't know better, who just doesn't know it's impossible.
Mm-hmm. We have an interesting development in the news, which is that Dave Letterman, of course, announced he's retiring. Is it time for a woman in late night comedy?
Woo! I don't think yet. No. There actually is a woman in late night, and her name is Chelsea Handler, and she's a huge force. So, yeah, I think it should go to the best person for the job, and which could easily be a woman. I bet if they could get Chelsea, they'd be praying to whoever they pray to, or wow. Oh God, let's wrap this up really well, Sarah. It's not like it can't be some kind of like let's get a woman in there because there hasn't been a woman, or Chelsea is undeniable, and that's what it takes. When women ask me, like, how do you get in show business, or how do you do this, or how do you do that? Be undeniable. It might not be fair. It's not about making things fair, and you don't want to get things because of fairness. Just be undeniable, and that's how strides are made. Thanks, Susie. Thanks, Nora.
Be undeniable. That's great. Susan, when you look at your younger sister, and how much younger is she? She's the baby in the family.
Baby. 7 years.
What do you see?
I mean, like in a sexy face? Ew.
No, I was trying for like elegant and
All right.
serious.
Work on it. I see, truthfully, I mean, listen, I'm a rabbi, and I see things often from this certain sort of cultural perspective, and I see Sarah as a continuation of the like intention of the biblical prophets, of calling out the truth as she sees it, of calling out injustices, and she does it in a way unlike the biblical prophets, where people listen.
I couldn't agree more.
She peels away the layers of the stuff that makes us feel comfortable to be able to pretend that things are okay, or that we don't need to act, or that we don't need to change anything. And she peels that away and makes us see what's real.
That's really profound about calling out injustice.
Sorry.
I said that's really profound about calling out injustice and thinking about it in that way. And you have, beyond what we talked about earlier, you've addressed voter ID laws as well in this country.
Yeah, and the abortion issue really echoes the process of the voter ID laws, which is state by state, little by little, chipping away. It's like who's the bad guy in the Dukes of Hazzard? It's more like knocking out your head. Like making abortion illegal would be a bear, but to knock out your headlights and go, oh, your headlights busted, you can't drive. That's kind of the very discreet way that voter suppression has been happening, and also what's happening with women's rights and a woman's right to choose. And that's September 23rd on Liz's website, V to Shining V, Lady Parts Justice. We're doing a whole thing called V to Shining V, and I hope you all take part in it to go home to your home state capital and march for women's rights September 23rd. I'll be in Concord, New Hampshire, and I hope you go to your home state and do that. I just plugged something.
That's great.
Okay.
And explain what that means, V to V.
Huh?
Explain what that means.
V to Shining V? Well, it's a play on words using vagina. Nora, come on. That was the question, right?
During our program on CBS this morning, we have commercials for vaginal medicine. And my son and my husband watched it. My son said, my 6-year-old son said, "Dad, they just said vagina on the air. Is that okay?" My husband said, "Of course it's okay."
Okay, it's great. Well, it's for like some weird vagina spray. You don't need it. You need soap and water. You need something more than soap and water, call the doctor. You don't need vagina perfume. That's the man.
Well, let's have...
Oh, shit. 4948. International adoption, justadopt.net. Throwing that out there.
Susan, you have 3 girls, 2 boys. 2 of your children are adopted. Talk about why you feel so firmly about adoption.
Why do I?
Yes.
She's like on a mic and right next to me, and I still can't hear her. Definitely getting old. My parents actually were foster parents when I was a kid, and I remember having foster sisters who lived with us. And I remember thinking, wow, there are kids without parents in the world? Well, come to find out, there are between 150 and 200 million orphans in the world. And earlier, the speakers were talking about sex trades, and 60% of unparented girls end up in sex trades. 70% of unparented boys. This is a crisis like we've never seen. I mean, you know, we worry a lot about adult human rights abuses. But when you talk about 150 to 200 million children at risk, 8 to 12 million institutionalized, where kids who run up in institutions are at much greater risk of suicide and mental illness. And what does that do about the future generations for kids who aren't parented and at such great risk? And then when should they make it, tens of thousands of kids in sub-Saharan Africa die of diarrhea every year.
I hear that.
Sometimes she's over
Serious,
the
and
line.
I shouldn't have said that. It's just diarrhea is a trigger word for me. Sorry, this is astounding. Yeah.
It's hard to be laughing and then to go back to... and the international powers that be, governments and NGOs, really, really undermine international adoption. And it looks like we're out of time. There are lots of reasons that happens, and I have lots of responses to those reasons, but that needs to change. That we have children who are drowning in this world, who are at risk beyond what we could ever imagine and what we would ever want to imagine for our children. And that this needs to change. This systemic undermining of children has got to change.
And once you know that, you can't unknow it. And so we're responsible for that.
We want to thank Rabbis Susan Silverman and Sarah Silverman. Thank you so much.